You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Hi, friends. This is Will Parker back with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, as we bring you a Monday Matters. And Jen, if anyone's listening to this, it's going to be on their Christmas break, because I know most principals, when they get this in their inbox on February 22nd, it's going to say, sorry, I'm not in my office until January 8th or whatever it is that they're coming back. So if you're listening to this, happy holidays, and I hope you guys are getting ready for a wonderful new year. Jen, what are you guys gearing up for as you're thinking about Christmas?
Yeah, it is. In our district, we will work the 22nd, 23rd, not with students though, but the administrators will. And that's always a good time just to kind of recalibrate, get the office cleaned up, deal with all the papers, stacks, return some phone calls, write some thank you notes. So that'll be what's happening the next couple of days.
So for any central office administrators that are listening, or 12-month employee principals whose folks still require them to come in, there may be some people listening to us on Monday morning as they commute. I'll probably be listening to this when I'm at the gym, which is what I typically do on Monday mornings. I wanted to just take this opportunity, though, because we are going to share a show out on Christmas Eve, because we have a guest that's going to be coming out on the 24th. So if you want to listen to this week's flagship show, we are going to take a break for the next Monday Matters. So you won't hear the next show until December 31st, which is going to be an interview with Guy Kawasaki. So we've got some great interviews that we wanted to wrap the year up with, because we've got so many wonderful guests. But Jen, I just wanted to do some thank yous in today's episode and just kind of look back at the year, and particularly the year with Principal Matters. But this isn't just what you do either. And so I wanted to also give an opportunity for you to give any shout outs for folks that you've had the opportunity to connect with. But, you know, this podcast has just given us an amazing platform that I don't take for granted. The opportunity to speak into the lives of leaders, many of whom reach out to us, and we know from their feedback the kinds of conversations that we have that are meaningful to them. But many that we never talk to, but sometimes we run into at conferences or events, and they'll run up and say, hey, I listened to your podcast, or I'm familiar with your work. And so that's always so much fun. But this work for me has evolved into my full-time work. But before we jump into some thank yous I want to give for Principal Matters and to guests from this past year, what are some highlights from your year working from your own books and your own consulting and your own speaking that you want to remember?
It has been a great year, Will. It's been a busy one. My 5th book came out, Trusted came out, and that was exciting. It was a topic that I had long wanted to really just kind of put out there for principals. And then I recorded my first audiobook. ASCD sold the rights to my very first book, You're the Principal, Now What?, to Echo Point Books and Media. And so that will be coming out in the new year. And then I was able to do a lot of really fun work with, a couple of districts and organizations around the country. I got to go to Utah to work with their principals, and IASP in Indiana, went to Oregon for the Wide Open Spaces Conference and worked with those principals. And then, of course, always such great connections I have with ASCD and NASSP. One of the fun things for me has been I've seen a shift, and this is really through ASCD and ISD, a shift toward really, let's talk about instructional leadership again. And that's been good grounding for me, but also has allowed me to create a lot of new content about how exactly a principal is supposed to lead instruction.
Well, and let's talk about your newsletter too, Jen, because this year has been a year for you to just say, all right, how about you get to hear from Jen, not just when you read my next book, but every single week. So what have you enjoyed about that process?
Right. Well, it really pushed me, Will. It really did. Technology is not something I enjoy learning about. But a mutual friend of ours, Danny Bauer, said, hey, you ought to do this and you ought to try this certain platform. So I tried, and there's still a lot that I have to learn. But yeah, every Tuesday, I just try and let people know what I'm thinking about. At first I wanted to kind of do a thematic approach. So I do a certain topic for a month, and that has not happened. I tend to sit down and think, what do I feel like people might be wondering? And so every week is kind of willy-nilly what's going on in Jen Schwanke's brain. So heaven help you all.
Well, the topics have been rich and wonderful, and I'm so grateful that we get to bring them to this show too. It's funny, when I was looking back at my own reflections for this year, I was doing this the other day with a group. I like to do some reflection questions, and we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I forgot I wrote a book. I was trying to write down like things this past year, milestones, and I suddenly went, oh my gosh, I wrote a book. Whose permission are you waiting for? An Educator's Guide to Doing What You Love. You think when you talk about something so much, you would remember. But I just want to give a shout out to the many schools and organizations and groups that I've been able to partner with, because now that this work is my full-time work, it has really grown into long-term relationships, districts and schools and organizations that I've been able to support across a lot of different spectrums. And some in particular that I want to say thank you to: the Archdiocese of Louisville and Catholic schools. Jen, you've done work with them too, have been wonderful partners. The state of Ohio's education and workforce development. They support lots of charter schools across the state, and I've been able to stay partnered with them now for several years. Palo Alto has just been a wonderful partner. Springfield Local in Ohio. I won't go through every group I work with, but those are some wonderful ones. And I'm going to put a newsletter to our listeners that will go out with this week's post if you want to read the different schools and groups that I've been able to work with. But some of the conferences that I was at, you and I both got to be at the United Conference with NASSP and NAESP, but I also had the chance to work with SANES up in New York, the SAM National Innovative Conference in Miami, Florida. Louisiana's association brought me in. Alabama's Association for Assistant Principals, CLAS, brought me in for some of those events. So thank you to anyone that brought me in for events. And then, Jen, we've had sponsors on the show: iExcel Learning, DigiCoach, EduSkills, Alpaca. So thank you to them, and Summer Pop's Math Workbooks. We're really grateful for the organizations and groups that support this work too.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the podcast, because we did shift formats this year. Now we have a Monday Matters that's just you and I yakking back and forth. And then we have the flagship show on Wednesdays, where we've had some really, really incredible guests. And I haven't told you this story, but I did some learning this week actually with the podcast. So an episode came out with my friend, Dr. Greg Johnson, and you and I both thought this is a big one. People need to listen to this. And so I sent it to my mom, and listeners know a little bit about my mom. She lives in a farmhouse in rural Ohio. And I never had a TV growing up. She still does not have a television in her home. She listens to a lot of radio. And so she called me and she said, honey, I don't want to insult you, but, and I'm like, what? She said, you interrupted Greg too much with your ahas and yes. So she said it actually much nicer than that. And I said, oh, that's great. She said, it's just because I listened to a lot of interviews on the radio. And so I went back and listened, and I agreed with her. So I'm going to be a better interview host going forward, because I got that feedback from a non-Principal Matters, a non-principal, I guess.
If she's listening to this conversation, I just am so happy your mom's listening. Not that I agree that you interrupt people, Jen. I think your interviews are stellar, but I just love it that your mother takes the time to listen to these conversations too. And you're right. Monday Matters has been a lot of fun, because one of the reasons we started introducing that content is because you and I interview so many guests that now it's 5 or 6 months before they're being released. And we're consistently having conversations with people that we want to bring to the show. At the same time, you and I are still growing and sometimes writing and creating content. And we're finding like, wow, we never really have time, Jen and I, to talk about what we're learning. So the Monday Matters has become that. We still have our Q&As on the Wednesday show, but that Monday Matters gives you and I a chance, sometimes just 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. We just have a chance to really at least unpack what's current for us.
Right. I was actually speaking to every year I go and I speak to the new principals in Ohio. They have a Beginning Administrators Academy. And this year, it was just December 7th that I did that. And at the end, I open it up to Q&A. And I can usually predict what kind of questions are going to come. Talk to me about parent conflicts, talk to me about discipline, talk to me about the legal updates. And this was the first year I'd ever had, and I don't think this is just an Ohio thing, I probably got 5 questions of people. How do I deal with my board? And I'm like, why are you dealing with your board? Like, that is a problem. And they said, because the board doesn't know what their job is. And so that's going to be my next crusade. I'm going to write some newsletters about that,
Well,
about ways you can remind people what their lanes are and what their job is.
Oh my gosh, Jen. And I know this show's called Principal Matters, but there's also been an evolution that's happened over the last several years too. And maybe someone who's listening, this is you. You may be a new listener or a veteran listener, but a lot of our listeners have grown in their roles. And so they still listen to the show, but now they're serving as an assistant super or a director or a superintendent. And that board relation has become an integral part of their leadership too. So I'm so glad you're going to speak to that, because that is something that it's a question that comes to me when I'm coaching, because I coach across all those spectrums. I also want to give a shout out, Jen, to our team, because you and I both know behind the scenes what's going on, but listeners may not know, Missy, my wife, she has her own full-time job, but she does all of the CFO work for Principal Matters and keeps me out of trouble and makes sure that everything's ready when it's time for tax season and quarterly payments. And Emily Parker Eaton, my oldest daughter, is our executive assistant, editor, copywriter, social media person, does all of our invoicing, client relations. And then Jen, and I'm not just saying this because we're on the show together, you know how much I value you, but man, what a wonderful opportunity it's been for Principal Matters to have you as the co-host, and you're such a prolific author, and your own contributions every single week and the energy that shapes the show would not be the same if you weren't in the room.
I'm trying not to interrupt, Will. I'm trying not to interrupt. I want to interrupt and say, stop. But my mother would not be appreciative of that. Stop. No, it has been a lot of fun. And what I love the most, I told you this, Will, I was in San Diego at a conference, and everybody goes around the room and introduces themselves. And a woman jumped up from the side and she went, oh, Principal Matters podcast. And so I think it's for all the principals who are driving to work listening to this or listening to it on a walk. There's a lot of you out there that are listening to this show, and we are it's such an honor, isn't it, Will, to have the microphone and be able to connect with people.
It's an amazing honor. And I still tell people all the time when they ask me, do you love your work? I'm like, how could you not love meeting with people consistently who care so deeply about kids, so deeply about their schools, and are just so excellent at their work. Aaron Fulbright, who's actually my nephew, but also just a talented pre-med student at the University of Arkansas, is also the designer and the manager of our website. And so he keeps us out of trouble. And anytime we run into something that we need help with, but we've had a few things happen this year too, that I wanted to give a couple shout outs to. We rebranded. So Principal Matters, the website has a new look. We've got probably in this video, there'll be a little label that you'll see, but I reached out to some friends of mine, Erica Bear and Tiffany Burns, who've been on the show. They're also authors with Connected Publishing, because I loved their website, and they pointed me to MollyKilleenDesigns.com. And Molly worked with us for quite a while to kind of reshape and really simplify and give our work a fresh look. And then I just want to, because you gave a shout out to ASCD, I'll give a shout out to Connected Publishing. I've been able to work with Jimmy Casas and Jeff Zool, and Jimmy's wife Keela does all the design work for the books from their company. And they did a beautiful job on my new book this year. But Jen, I love it when we give shout outs to guests. And so I don't want to bore people, but I want to say the names. And so is it okay if I read names through Greg Johnson and then you read the rest as we just say thank yous to people from being our guests this year? So I want to say thank you to Tracy Anderson Swilly and Amanda Austin and Danny Bauer and Bethany Bilodeau and Cale Burke and Todd Bloomer and Karen Borchert and Bo Brannon and Derek Cantrell, P.J. Kaposi, LaDonna Chancellor, Margaret Coates, Tyler Comey, Jen David Lang, Angela Diggs, Mike Fitzpatrick, Kate Anderson Foley, Tony Frontier, Will Nick Gideon, Damon Harris, Donna Hayward, Brent Jaco, Carlos Johnson, and Greg Johnson. And Jen, I'll let you say shout outs to the rest of our guests from 2025.
Oh, it's such an honor. Jeff Jones, Baruti Kafali, known as Principal Kafali, Robert Kaiser, Brandy Kelly, Nathan Lawler, Eric Mace, Kim Marshall, John Marinucci. Marinucci. Sorry, John. Another one.
Mahalio.
John Malayo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John. Derek Mitchell, Mike Nicholson, Ohio State University graduate students. They were repeat guests. Yeah. Darren Peppard, Lena Penley, Ross Romano, LaVonna Roth, Tanya Sheckley, Danny Steele, Michelle Steingart, TJ Vari, Steve Ventura, Tim Villegas, and Crystal Williams. Your generosity and your commitment to leadership and learning, it makes our work possible. And I mean, Will, I know you and I are always talking about how grateful we are to these people that come onto the show.
We are. One of my favorite things to do as we wrap up a year like this, Jen, is to take every guest that we had from this year and put them all in one place.
Yep.
So if you are listening to this and you want to just link to today's post on the website, there's going to be a link of all 104 shows that we've put out up until this point. I don't think I've included the links yet for the next 2 shows. So be listening, because next week we'll put out our final one on the 24th and then one on the 31st. But Jen, as we wrap up, I just want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you if you listen regularly. I want to invite you to rest and reflect and unplug where you can, because sometimes the holidays are crazy. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you also, as we wrap up, is there a favorite Schwanke tradition? Is there something you guys like to do around the holidays that you're looking forward to?
Well, there are. When my kids were little, we tried to do that thing where we went to the aunt's house and the grandma's house and then the other grandma's house. And I think I may have had a mental break. And so I announced, I don't leave my house on Christmas. It's one day out of 365. I don't leave. And so people can come to me and I'll have a ham and corn pudding and all of that. But we stay home. That's our tradition.
Jen, I'm so glad you do. It's so funny. We've never shared these stories, but Missy and I had that same epiphany after having kids. We were just like, we can't do this. This is too much travel. So Christmas Day became our day.
Yep.
Now that our kids are adults and have their own spouses, partners, and significant others, we let them do their Christmas.
Yep.
And so now we've shifted over to the 26th when they come over.
Perfect.
And but our favorite tradition, and we've been able to do this every year, I don't know how long this will last, is after the Christmas days are over on the 27th, we load it up and we drive to West Tennessee to go back to the farm to visit family. There'll be 30 plus Parker relatives that all gathered together for another big family Parker Christmas there. So we'll have a tender Tennessee Christmas.
Perfect.
To wrap it up. It's going to be wonderful.
That's great.
Well, Jen, as we wrap up this conversation, I just want to say thank you again. I want to remind listeners that learning continues way after today. But I hope you unplug. I hope that even if you don't listen to the next few episodes, it's okay with me. I want you to catch up when you have time. But man, put the phones away.
Yep.
Just be you, because you deserve it. So thank you for doing what matters, Jen, and thank you, listeners, for doing what matters. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williambparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.